Today we celebrate one of our Canadian neighbors, Saint Margaret Bourgeoys. On January 12th, Roman Catholics remember Saint Marguerite, who not only founded a religious congregation, but was also instrumental in establishing the Canadian city of Montreal. Did you know that? She was born on Good Friday in 1620. She was the seventh of 13 children. By her own account, she was very light-hearted and well-liked by the other girls while growing up. Her turn toward God's calling began in 1640, not long after her mother's death. On October 7th of that year, during a procession honoring Our Lady of the Rosary, she had a mystical experience involving a statue of the Virgin Mary at Notre Dame Abbey. We passed again in front of the portal of Notre Dame, where there was a store image above the door. Margaret later recounted, "When I looked up and saw the stone image, I thought it was very beautiful, and at the same time I found myself so touched and so changed that I no longer knew myself, and on my return to the house, everybody noticed the change." In later life, Marguerite would live out a profound imitation of the Virgin Mary, who was, as she noted, not cloistered, but everywhere preserved an internal solitude, and never refused to be where charity or necessity required help. During the 17th century, it was unusual for consecrated women to have an active apostolate outside the cloister. From 1640 to 1652, she belonged to the non-cloistered external branch of the Congregation of Notre Dame at Troyes, consisting of women trained as teachers in association with the order. She also sought admission to several religious orders, including the Carmelites, but was rejected. Being turned down, the teacher from Troyes was free to volunteer for a voyage to Canada in the colony of Quebec. Life there was very difficult physically. When Marguerite arrived, she found that children were not likely to survive to an age suitable for attending school. Nevertheless, she began to work with the nurse in charge of Montreal's hospital and eventually established a first school there in 1658. She traveled back to France that year and returned to Montreal with 3 more teachers and an assistant. Because of their association with the original French congregation, these women were called daughters of the congregation. They would eventually become a religious order in their own right, the Congregation of Notre Dame de Montréal, whose sisters sacrificed comfort and security to teach religion and other subjects to the children of the territory then known as the New France. They would live in poverty and travel wherever they were needed, offering education and performing works of mercy. The founder of the order involved 2 further trips to France. During the first, Marguerite's project received approval under civil law from King Louis XIV. The church hierarchy, however, showed reluctance toward a women's order with no cloistered nuns. The rule of life would not receive final approval until 1698, though the Bishop of Quebec had authorized their work in 1656. Meanwhile, Marguerite and her companions persisted in their mission of teaching and charity, and she became known as the Mother of the Colony in Quebec. Though the teaching sisters often lived in huts and suffered other hardships, the order grew. They did not dedicate themselves solely to teaching children, but also set up schools where they taught new immigrants how to survive in their surroundings. As the order expanded, Marguerite passed leadership on to one of the other sisters, and during the last 2 years of her life, Sister Marguerite, then known as Sister Marguerite of the Blessed Sacrament, retired to pray in solitude. On the last day of 1699, after a young member of the community became sick, she prayed to God to suffer in her place. The young woman recovered, while the aged foundress suffered for 12 days and died in January 12, 1700. Blessed Pope John Paul II canonized Saint Margaret Bourgeoys in 1982 as the first woman saint of the Catholic Church in Canada. Of course, we know Blessed John Paul II is now Saint John Paul II. And one day you should be a saint too, and I as well. Let's hope.